Great. So, Tim, welcome.
Thank you.
A lot going on with LivingSocial this year, a lot going on in the deal space in general. And so basically wanted to start off with just saying, a lot has happened this year. A lot of people have been saying a lot of things, and what's going on with LivingSocial, and kind of go backwards from there.
So I understand, as Laura pointed out, that, and I'm acutely aware that I'm what separates you to cocktails, so I will try and be somewhat entertaining and worth your delayed alcohol intake for a half hour. But yeah, the business, I think the space and LivingSocial on the whole got a lot more positive press than was the reality of the situation. And I think for a while the pendulum swung too far the other way, and the truth has always been something more in the middle. And so we're a business that we have been around for 6.5 years, 4 years in this current model, and we're a bigger company. And you've got some things that are going well, you've got some things that aren't, and you're always trying to shift that ratio more to things going well. Okay,
great. And so just wanted to touch on that. And then just go back to, we were just talking about how, what you saw in the beginning when you started LivingSocial. You've talked about the disruption that you saw in the marketplace. And so just talk a little bit about that and kind of, the evolution there and the disruption that you're seeing now or have been seeing ongoing.
So we initially started the business when Facebook opened up their platform, and I think many people probably remember it as the sheep throwing era, and we really viewed it as, wow, you can acquire users faster and cheaper than you ever could in the history of the web. And so we wanted to go do something around that, and we didn't really know what. So we had a few different model iterations until we found what we're at now. And one of the things that I think a lot of people don't know is the reason that the business grew so fast was actually because the model was timed with when Facebook started to let you go and buy ads. And so there was, Facebook had massive traffic, but it was a hugely inefficient market. And so you could go and acquire users, just both paid and organic, and you just create this massive, massive flow because there weren't major advertisers spending on Facebook. Think about, we launched in 2009, and when if you look at Facebook revenue numbers in 2009 and 2010 and compare them today, there weren't that many people advertising. So I think now there's new inefficient markets. I think Pinterest is very, very interesting to watch because they have enough traffic and a coveted demographic where people are going to go and try and figure out how to go spend money on it effectively.
That's interesting. So you're saying that social networks have really, really drove your business strategy and your expansion.
Yeah, I think that in particular, Facebook initially was the reason that we and others in the space got big, is because you could go and put $1 into Facebook's advertising platform, and those users you could sign up, you could get $2 back from in a pretty short period of time. So that really is what drove a lot of the expansion initially.
And you just mentioned Pinterest. So you continue to look at social networks as sort of the growth vehicle for...
I think we look at where are people, and I think Pinterest has achieved enough scale that you have to start to pay attention of how do you go and interact with it, and how do you start to get some of those eyeballs to do things that you want to do and present things to them that will be interesting to them.
Okay, so that leads me to a couple things that I love to hear you talk about, which is, you guys have really, you just mentioned you go where the eyeballs are, and you guys have really focused on the demand side of the business very much in your history. But in the last year, you've really started to add in the supply side, things like Onosis, think about SaaS and CRM, and then you've also put together this deals database strategy. So there's a lot of changes going on, and so this is part of the kind of, vision, other disruption, changes in the marketplace. I'd like to hear you talk more about how you made those decisions.
Yeah, so I think, look, we started out as a daily deal business. Even if you think of the supply and demand equation in a market, we had 1 million users in a market, and we had one thing that we were sending 1 million users to. And so the demand far outweighed what the supply could support. So you try and figure out ways that you can go and get more supply and then get it to the right users. And that's where things like relevance and personalization come in, and starting to segment markets. So I think that some of it is just driven by that. But also, we viewed, when we first started it, we thought, daily deal, that's an interesting concept. We think there's legs to this. But we kind of realized with the asset base that we had, we should be able to do other things and leverage it to go into new areas. And I think that's where we've been spending a lot of time focusing is how do we take the hundreds of thousands of merchants we work with, the tens of millions of customers that we have, this big sales force, this big technology team, and start to figure out new ways to drive customers through the doors of merchants, which is really what our business is all about. People think of it as a daily deal business, but frankly, it's not very daily anymore, but it's advertising dollars, and it's collecting those advertising dollars to get customers.
And so when you decided to move beyond that, how do you decide, which products to, how did you decide to go deals database? How did you decide to go towards Onosis? And also, if you could talk about Onosis for a little, just explain what that is, because I don't think everybody is aware of that. It's actually quite different in many ways from what you've done, right?
So I think when we think about prioritization, it's what can you, where's the low-hanging fruit with the assets that you have, and what can you do with it? And then how do you go and, you reach a certain scale, and if something can be a great idea, but if it's going to do a couple $1,000,000 a year for you, it's just not going to be worth it. So I think there's a cultural change that has to occur around understanding what actually moves the needle. So learning how to do that as an organization is important. The business that you mentioned it's a small business that we acquired about 18 months ago called Onosis that. It's okay.
Sorry about
that is if you think of OpenTable is two parts of their business. They have a consumer, you go to opentable.com, you book a reservation, and you go to the restaurant's website, and you can book a reservation on their website. For online ordering, there's a similar world. So, you can go to, we tried this out, didn't work for us, but you can go to Seamless, Grubhub, you can order delivery online. But if you go to an actual restaurant's website, generally there wasn't the ability to go and process a transaction themselves in an online ordering system. So Onosis is a business that's one of the biggest out there. It actually processes hundreds of millions a year in GMV of actual transaction volume for restaurants by letting people go to their website and place an order for them.
So, and is that integrating into the rest of your business? Is it closing a loop there for merchants?
Yeah, it is loosely right now. I think if you think that we're around going and helping facilitate bringing you more customers, it's another way to solve that problem. And so, in a perfect world, you can drive them customers, and then they can go and effectively get that transaction to occur, on their own site. So it's actually a great story. It's three immigrant guys in Cleveland that went and started the business. All right, well, I'm sorry for your sports teams, but so you've got and they've really built this business over the last 6 or 7 years and really been able to grow it and it's a nice story.
That's a story. That is a story. That's a great story. So. It's my understanding that you really are looking to move more into some automation and some self-serve tools, and have started doing that with some white label services. And it'd be great to hear more about that. I mean, my understanding is that it's not just sort of great product for merchants, but it's a sales strategy, really, in terms of building a sales force or not. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, for those of you that have sales teams or thinking about sales teams and selling to SMBs, it's it's hard. You know that you need to outlay upfront cash to build a sales team in order to go and get the customers, which you then hope to monetize. And I've always viewed it of you need to make $500 to $600 in gross profit in order to cover just the cost of sale generally. So if you can't do that in your business, you're in trouble. Now our business was such that we were actually able to do that with a wide variety of merchants. A lot of merchants that we'd work with, we would go and make more than $500, $600 in gross profit in order to cover that cost of sale. But it limited the set that we worked with. So there are some merchants that are out there that might not, that might only want a handful of customers a month, where we need to build automated tools in order to get them on our platform, because the business model doesn't work if you go and have a salesperson go and do it. So I think that a lot of it just goes to the business model and what can be supported with a sales team and what can be supported with automated methods. And can you expand your customer base, and which customers do you funnel to which way?
Okay, so one of the ideas that's been going through the industry is that everyone is going to be building automation tools, and you're beginning to do that, and sort of have move away from these sales forces, and therefore you move from a service business to a software business. And so what is the profile of LivingSocial right now? Is it a software business? And then also, is it a local marketing business?
I think we're an ad platform. We are a marketing platform for small and large businesses to reach local and national audiences. That's what we do. And there's, I think if you get big enough, you're always going to need to have some form of sales team or account management team, because you're going to have big clients that are worth it, and that you can make a good ROI on that. Now, you can expand your client base and you can reduce, improve your business model the more that you can automate certain things. But I think it's an investor's ideal scenario if you can have everything pure automation and the internet and software is eating the world, and there's some piece of that's true, but the human contact and the ability to actually do effective account management is I think going to be here for a while.
Well, and let's talk about your investors and their view of the company. I mean, I would imagine they would love it to be sort of purely a software play with those kinds of margins and those kinds of returns, and so is that kind of the conversation there?
Yeah, I think what they would love more than anything is a growing, profitable, sustained business with a big moat.
And one that with a great exit or an IPO.
Yeah, that's a milestone, right? Of course, if you're an investor, you're gonna want your return at some point in time. But I think that being incredibly SaaS driven tends to have characteristics that make those things that I just mentioned true more regularly. But if you can make it true while having a sales team as part of what you do, that's also fine. So I think what they care about is can we grow, can we increase profitability, and can we continue to build a moat? And if we can do those things, that ultimately provides the return that they're looking for.
Right. Okay. So I think we need to touch on sort of the elephant in the room, which is Groupon and daily deals as a moniker. And so what are your thoughts about did Groupon take the wind out of the sales of daily deals? What happened to that whole business?
The business is pretty big. I would say people thought that it could become, massive market, and they probably have changed their perspective on it. I think we thought that it would probably be a little bit bigger than it was, and we've changed our perspective on that. But that doesn't mean that it is that it's not a large, good market that can really be a profitable business. So I think that's how we view it. I don't know how they view it, but they probably view it similarly. And then a business reaches scale, you become stable with it, and then you figure out, all right, what's next? What else can we do?
Right.
And so I think that's kind of what you're seeing happen, in our industry right now.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we've talked about is that sort of the different stages of this industry is that you have companies that come out and they focus on a particular thing and prove the model, and I think we saw that with Daily Deals, and then from there, that's sort of a foundation on which sort of broader services or sort of understanding what the end customer needs. It sort of builds on that, and so is Daily Deals a feature? I mean, are you starting to look at it that way as you guys expand yourselves?
I think how we view it is that it is a very, very powerful marketing tool, but it shouldn't be our only marketing tool. So and you can see this in our site and how things have evolved right now is a way that businesses can get customers through us is by offering this prepaid offer and getting a voucher where somebody walks through the door. But there are different ways that can happen, whether it's affiliates, whether it's kind of claiming offers. I think that we're really around, look, we want to go and drive you customers in whatever way works the best for you. And I think that the prepaid offer model is a pretty powerful tool and will be for some period of time, but it won't be the only tool.
Yeah, and you know what? Gosh, I can't remember. Somebody earlier today had some data up on the screen that just showed that it's a much smaller piece of what local merchants are doing, and whether that was, right or wrong, which, I'm sure it was right, whoever that was, but, or not. And so, the question is, what do local merchants want, right? And you guys are on the front lines with them, and so, have you seen a change, or like a change in what they want, or a change in sophistication? I mean, we just did this mini survey that's going to come out in a report next week, and it was sort of surprising to me that merchants were saying the most important thing to them was getting customers in the door. Now, that's not surprising, but it was new customers versus returning, and a lot of the backlash against like Groupon was that it was just sort of one time, one and done, right? So.
Yeah, I mean, I think how we view it, and right now, right around 65 to 70% of customers that buy something through us, it's the first time that they've ever visited that merchant. And to some degree, it is up to the merchant to provide an experience, and we'll try and help them as much as we can to go and bring them back. We can get somebody there, and we'll try and build products to help them continue to come back and give you tools to make them come back. But the experience that they have is still going to be the number one driving factor on that. So I think that we haven't seen a huge shift. I think the one thing that a lot of people, you mentioned that we hear from local merchants is well, what's the definition of a local merchant as well? I think that's something that people think, okay, restaurant, they think, local boutique, they think something else. But as a real estate agent, a local merchant. What about the auto dealer? And if you look at the advertising space, and this is where I think things will evolve over the next couple of years. If you look at local radio broadcasting, local TV broadcasting, you look at the spend, and print newspapers to some degree still, you look at the spend that actually occurs in those categories, and then you look at where we actually get our revenue from, there's very little overlap. We very rarely work with grocery stores, with Macy's, with real estate agents, with Ford, with local auto dealerships, and that's what drives the local advertising market, frankly. So I think one of the things that should happen in this space over time is that we have local audiences, we know a lot about them, we should be able to start to work with those advertisers and connect them with the right people. And a prepaid model isn't necessarily, nobody's going to necessarily prepay for the Ford Focus through us, right? So, but there are different advertising products and models that will work. So I think that there's a very narrow view of what's local advertising and local business, but that's a little bit more how we view the spectrum and define it. Okay.
That's interesting. So I have a whole bunch of other questions, but I want to get to Q&A quickly. So that's interesting that you're looking at sort of those other areas, categories that you're not in, but so where do you look for additional market share? How do you grow it in terms of categories? What are you looking at for the market?
I think a lot of it is you look at what category expansion can you do, and then how can you offer new products that'll let you expand within category. And so that's some of the prioritization that we do. We launched a vertical called At Home earlier this year because we were in a daily deal environment. Nobody impulse buys gutter cleaning, but in a world where you have more of a marketplace environment, you can build up a directory of those things. It makes a lot more sense. So we continue to look at how can we build different products to expand in those categories.
Okay, and so then that leads me to two questions, which I want to two-part question, which I want to hear the answer to both of them, which is, so as a result, who's in your rearview mirror? Is it Google? Is it Amazon? And then also, where's your revenue in 3 years? And those are of a piece, so.
Got it. Yeah, I think it's your competitors are who has the dollars that you want, and I think there's a little of that with Google, but I actually think in the local advertising space, you look at Yelps, but you also look at the national or the TV broadcasters, the local radio broadcasters, et cetera, the yellow pages. There's still billions and billions and billions of annualized revenue that goes into each of those categories that I just mentioned. And I think that's where we view our competition is we want to build products to steal those dollars, even if the products themselves aren't competitive.
And then in 3 years, where's your revenue?
Up. More. I don't know. 3 days from now, I don't know what's going on.
You have a plan. Where's most of your revenue coming from in 3 years?
Yeah.
Either product-wise or market-wise or both.
Yeah, I think it will continue to be more diversified. Our business, the prepaid offer component to what we do, I bet 3 years from now is less than 50% of our revenue. I think there will be different advertising products that we will have that drive people through the doors that will collectively make up a bigger chunk of the business. But I think it will, the prepaid offer piece still might be the biggest part of our business, but it probably won't be more than half of our revenue.
Got it. Okay, that's all for me for the moment, unless we don't have questions. But I'd like to open it up to questions. Have we got some questions? Have we really got no questions? Okay, I'll keep talking. Oh, there's a question. Okay, she's got a mic for you.
There's a lot of activity in the card link to offers space. A new industry association was just announced a few weeks ago.
Card links?
Card links, yes.
We're on the board.
Okay, you're on the board. Well, that's my question is, what do you think of that trend and how are you participating in it?
So we are very bullish on it, as you might guess. We think that we need to continue to expand the way that we can drive customers for merchants, and that's a way to do it. There's a trove of information that can be leveraged and harnessed via card-linked offers, and we're successful if we drive the number of customers in an ROI positive way for merchants, and I think we're increasingly flexible at how we do that. So I think card linked is going to become bigger, and I think we'll play in that space.
Other questions? Okay, one right here.
How do you think about push versus pull, especially in the longer term?
I think the more that you can be pure, the utopian scenario is if you're totally direct, because then you're relying on nobody. You're relying on the web existing, right? And the more that you're relying on other platforms, the more risk you introduce to your business. So I think email is a very powerful tool. It will continue to be a powerful tool, but you're still reliant on other parties and platforms to go and determine what is in priority inbox. Oh, I'm going to do this UI design that does this or does that, and so that can introduce risk. If you're reliant on organic search. Algorithm changes can change, materially what you have. So the utopian scenario is that people pull up an app and navigate directly to you, or go to their browser and navigate directly to you. And so I think businesses that the more that they can do that, the more staying power that they will have, and the more valuable that customer base will be. So I genuinely think, that people should be actively trying to figure out how do they migrate to that environment. But that doesn't mean that the other channels aren't powerful, they just have more risk.
Well, let me follow on that. If people are doing, whoops, okay.
It broke.
Chair, you know what, this happened last year. We had a chair
Maybe
break
we should
during
try
the
new
Fireside.
chairs in 2014.
We were in a different place, but during the Fireside chat. Okay, so no, we're not doing these anymore. I'm just kidding. Okay, so, but sort of following on that, so your suggestion is the best thing is always if people go direct, of course. And so, for you guys, how do you fit into that then? If let's say the merchants want people to go direct, right? Well, that's sort of where the white label
I mean, I
valuation
think
is
merchants
coming
want
in, right?
customers, right? So, you know, they care less whether somebody visits us via an email, via a mobile device. They just want customers.
Right, okay, just like everybody. I had another question, but you go ahead.
So on the topic of push versus pull, it seemed like your answer was a little bit more desktop oriented, and we've seen a lot of the commerce companies talk about kind of a mobile first approach. Can you guys talk a little bit about, you know, the successes you're seeing on mobile, what can improve, and how you kind of increase customer frequency on mobile?
Yeah, so right around half our traffic is mobile. So it is a huge part of what we do. The transactions lag a little bit, conversion's a little lower, but about half our traffic's there. I tend to think that nobody has effectively cracked the geolocation combined with push notification nut, and if somebody is able to do that effectively, there can be a, I don't know if that's, I mean, that's kind of a combo push-pull strategy, but because if you're there, I don't know if it's actually pull, but I tend to think that that's going to be, nobody has really done that. We're trying to, others are trying to. You know, I'd love to see somebody do it.
Right, it's the opt-in problem, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you build a good enough product feature and something that is is tied into user experience, people are willing to do a lot, you know.
It's more the targeting technology, just not there yet.
Yeah, and making it worthwhile for a consumer, where it's not an annoyance, it's part of the actual product experience in an effective way.
Right. Other questions? Okay. Well, I just wanted to also ask, you know, who do you think is doing interesting things in local? You know, what are you looking at out there?
Well, the biased answer is us.
Besides LivingSocial.
Good, my legs are long enough. I can do this. All right. So I think that I actually think Google is doing a lot of interesting things in local right now. They're investing very, very heavily in it, both on an internal and an M&A standpoint. I think they could be, you know, they could be scary from not necessarily in a bad way, but in the level of handset penetration that they have, both from a hardware and from a software standpoint, is something that is going to enable a lot. If you basically said, look, you know, for somebody to do fantastic in the local space, what are the things that you would want to have? Well, you'd want to have people carrying your device around in your pocket. You'd want, even when it's not your device, you'd want it to be an OS that you operate. You'd want to have a ton of information about what they like to do, and you'd want to have billions and billions of dollars to go after it. So that's
So they've got those.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And so are you looking at doing more partnerships, or, you know, with them because of those things?
You know, something makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Cool. Any last thoughts on the direction of the industry, you know, where we're headed?
It certainly is a transition time. I think that the industry has grown up. A year ago, I think there was concern of wait, is there a viable business that exists here? And that was after a couple of years of wow, this is the most amazing thing ever. And I think it is normalized a little bit. And so now it's in my mind, it's a little bit more of the fun time. You can take a business and you can, you know, there's people don't have these massive expectations, but there's also not this worry of like, does something exist? And then you can figure out how to grow and grow off of that. And I think that's where the space is right now, is you're going to see a lot more long-term product development and business strategy that starts to happen.
Okay, great. Tim O'Shaughnessy, LivingSocial, thank you so much. Really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. Thanks, everyone.